Are you a small business owner who wants to learn how to create a budget for their business? If so, stick around. This video was created for you. Hey there, I'm Brian, the co-founder of Impact Bookkeeping. We are a premier online bookkeeping firm that specializes in handling the bookkeeping and accounting needs for small business owners across America. All right, enough about us. Let's go ahead and jump right into how to create a business budget. All right, so first off, let's just go over today's agenda real quick so you know what to expect. First, we're going to start off with what is a small business budget. Next, we're going to go into what benefits can creating and managing a budget year-round bring to your business. Following that, we're going to go into a tutorial and what a budget looks like and how to actually build one. And at the very end, we'll go over the bonus surprise that you get for hanging around. Okay, so this is pretty easy, but what is a business budget? The business budget we're going to be talking about today is a 12-month forecast of the projected revenue and expenses for your business. Pretty simple, right? All right, let's look at what some of the core benefits a small business budget can bring to you. Number one, it forces a business owner to become aware of every single expense their business incurs in a month. Number two, it can show you exactly where your break-even point is in your business, so you will know exactly where you need to get the business for it to become profitable. Number three, it can show you how much net profit or net loss your business will make under certain revenue and expense circumstances. Number four, it becomes a performance benchmark to hold your management team accountable to. Number five, it can become a roadmap for hitting targets along the way to accomplishing larger goals and objectives. All right, now that we got the benefits out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right into the tutorial on how to build your own business budget. Okay, so here is a business budget that I built for this example in Excel. The first thing I want to go over is the budget format and how you could build it if you want to build your own. So we'll start at the top. At the very top, you have your list of the 12 months of the year. And in between those months, we have a space for our actual. And what that means is when you're creating a budget, you have theoretical revenue and theoretical expenses that you're projecting. And then after the month of April comes, you'll pull out your income statement to pull your actuals. What did we actually do in revenue? What did we actually do in cost of goods sold? So as you're building out this top, make sure you leave space for your theoretical and your actual. As you go down the budget, I try to build it to be very similar to what your income statement or your profit and loss is going to look like. So as we go down, you have revenue and sales at the top, followed by cost of goods sold, then our payroll, then all of our general and administrative expenses, followed by your net profit or net loss for the time. One thing I'll say about the general and administrative expenses, we want to try to get every single expense that our business is going to incur in a month listed on here so that we're tracking every single expense, everything that could possibly affect our net profit or net loss for that month. We want it in here. Okay, so the next part of building your business budget is how do we fill in the numbers? Well, it's going to be different for different sections. So we'll start with revenue. To figure out how much revenue you should put in here is going to be different for every business. But if you've already been in business for a while, it'll be a lot easier for you to guess what revenue you're going to be doing in the coming months. If you haven't been in business yet, and this is a startup budget, there are a lot of other ways that you can come up with your projected revenue numbers. You might find comparable revenue numbers to other businesses in your industry and pull back on those numbers a little bit. But you'll want to figure out just a ballpark estimate for what you think your projected revenue is going to be for each month. And as you go through each month, you're going to get a chance to update it so that if you're wrong, you can hone them in and get them closer to being accurate over time. So that's what you'll do for revenue. For cost of goods sold, it's about knowing your industry. And for me, I owned restaurants, and we would always aim to have a cost of goods sold of 30% or less of our revenue, meaning that to get this number right here, we would take our revenue and times it by 30 or times it by 30%, and that would be our budgeted number here. Now, that's not actually what this is right now if you do the math, but that's an example for our business. We set a goal that our cost of goods had to be 30% or less of our revenue. And so as our revenue went across like this, we would come in and say, what's 30% of 7,000? What's 30% of 8,000? What's 30% of 9,000? And those would be the numbers that we would enter in here. Now, when it comes to payroll, we personally would aim for a total payroll of 25% of our revenue. So just like cost of goods sold, we would do 25% times 5,000, and that would be our budgeted number for total payroll. And so for us, that means our cost of goods sold and our total payroll would equal 55%. That would be our gross profit margin. And for other businesses, they might need a gross profit margin of 50% or 40%. But for us, our numbers were 30% cost of goods, 25%, and total payroll would give us enough leeway to still pay for all of our general and administrative expenses and still hit the budgeted profit numbers that we wanted to. But it might be different for your business. You'll have to research your industry. Now, as we go down to the general and administrative expenses, so what I'll say is the first two expenses are what I call variable expenses, meaning that they're going to change if your revenue changes, because if you're doing more revenue, you're going to have a higher cost of goods sold. If you're doing more revenue, you're probably going to be paying for more labor. So as revenue goes up, these two items are going to go up because they're variable expenses. And so as you go down to your G&A expenses, it's going to be the same thing, where if your merchant processing fee is 2.9%, it's going to increase as your revenue goes up. But then there's other things like your rent that's going to stay the same. If you've got a straight line rent, it'll just stay the same. So that'll be really easy for you to budget. But if it's a variable expense, like your merchant processing fee, make sure you're accounting for the increase in that as your revenue is going up. So the next thing I want to go over, since you know how to format it and then how to fill in these numbers, is how do we read it? And it's pretty simple. It's a lot like your P&L. You're going to read it as revenue minus cost of goods sold minus total payroll minus all of your general and administrative expenses is going to equal either your net profit or net loss for that month. Now that you know how to read it, let's look into actual versus theoretical. We mentioned it earlier, but let's say that we filled this budget out completely and the month of April just finished, and Impact Bookkeeping gave you your financial statements. You would take your income statement for April and bring it over here and compare it side by side to your budgeted numbers. You would look at your income statement and say, how much revenue did we do? Your income statement says you did $5,500. That's better than what you budgeted. So we would color that green. We go down to cost of goods sold and we see that we did $1,650. That looks higher than your budgeted number. But remember, we're trying to do, at least for our business, we're trying to do 30% or less. And this happens to be 30% on the dot of that revenue amount. So it's still green. As we go down to our hourly pay, that's all we have is just hourly paid employees. We can see that we were over that amount. And so we were also higher than 25%. So it is red. It is an area of concern that needs to be addressed. And so that's what we did the rest of the way down, is anything that was over budget, we highlighted as red, and anything that was under budget or we beat budget on, we highlighted as green. And so Now that you've finished that out, you went side by side with your income statement to your budget. You can look at your budget and say, how did we do? Well, we did good in revenue. We did good managing cost of goods sold. We went over on our labor. Okay, who is accountable for managing labor in your business on a daily basis? You would show them this and hold them accountable and ask, what are we going to do for the month of May to make sure that it's green and that we hit our budget or beat our budget? As you keep going down, you can see, okay, we went a little high on advertisement. Let's check into our advertisement billing and see why we went over it. Whoever's accountable for that, we need to let them know that they went over budget. Same with the bank charges and fees. And then for these green areas, we also want to figure out who's accountable for these green areas and say, good job. How did we beat budget? Do we need to lower our budget for the rest of the year? Were we a little high, right? Like if our office expense, we thought it was going to be $200 a month, but realistically it's $100 every month. This would be a good time to go through the rest of your budget and make it $100 a month. So with the green, it tells you where you did good. The red tells you what areas you need to work on the following month and who to hold accountable for that. And also, the red and the green can tell you if you need to set more realistic expectations going forward. You could, adjust the numbers accordingly as time goes on so that this budget becomes more and more accurate. The last thing I'll say about the colors is as you go month after month after month after month and you're filling in these colors, what's really cool is it starts to reveal a pattern. You might start to realize, wow, we always hit our cost of goods, but we're always missing it on our labor. We've hit 6 months in a row. We've been over on labor, just red after red after red after red. It might be time for a new game plan, right? You might realize that your advertising is going over every single month. You might realize that, you're beating it in other categories. The main thing is just if you've got these colors, it will start to reveal to you patterns, areas in your business that you miss or perform poorly in more often than not, which tells you as the business owner exactly the things that you need to work on. So another thing that I like about building a budget, especially when a business is early on, is it can show you your break-even point. And so when I was putting in these revenue numbers and expenses, I did it specifically to show you guys that in April, we're budgeted to do negative $2,353. And as our revenue goes up a little bit each month and we continue to hit our expense goals, we're getting closer and closer to our break even, meaning now we're actually making a little profit between negative $17 to $177. If we scroll up, we can now identify somewhere between $9,000 and $9,500 in revenue. If we manage our expenses well, we become a profitable company. And then you can also see if we continue to increase that revenue and manage our variable expenses, we can make even more profit. So that's cool. That's a really cool way to just, see that point in time at which your business can start to become profitable. And you can build it out far enough to see at what point in revenue are we going to make enough profit where I can start to make the money that I want to make as the business owner. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to talk about is when you're making a budget, it's really great if you have one, but what's even better, and this sounds like a lot of work, but once you build one budget, this next part becomes easier. But if you have a very, very conservative budget, and then like a medium conservative budget, and then a non-conservative budget, so that you can see how your business could perform if it does really bad, if it does okay, or if it's performing really well. What does that look like in those scenarios? And when you create your first budget, I would make it in the middle, a sort of conservative budget that you honestly think is the most likely picture. And then from there, I would back down your numbers a little bit to make, a worst case scenario budget. And then the last one I make would be a high performing budget. What would it look like if we were performing 20 to 30% better than what we think we're actually going to perform? That way you'll have a budget prepared for all the scenarios, and you'll also kind of be aware of what sort of moves you're going to need to make as a business owner if you get put in a worse position or a best position scenario in your business. All right, that's it for how to build a budget for your small business. Now, since you stuck around to the end, here's your bonus. Because we're here to help, we're going to leave the budget Excel spreadsheet used in this video attached in the description below for your use. Also, Impact Bookkeeping is offering free budget creation for all new clients in 2022. So if you'd rather leave the budgeting to us, we got you covered. And last thing we'll say is, if you are a small business owner who needs help with their bookkeeping now, just visit our website today at www.impactbookkeeper.com, and we would be more than happy to help you out. All right, that's it for today's video. Good luck and take care.